Next fun hand, I open up pocket kings to $30 from the cutoff. Both the blinds call. 3 ways to a flop of queen, 8, 7, rainbow. Small blind checks. Big blind does not check. Big blind puts out a bet. Big blind bets $40. Could certainly make a case for raising here, but I just decided to flat call in this situation. The small blind calls as well, so still 3 ways to a turn card. Turn brings the 4 diamonds, which is a second diamond on the board. Small blind checks. This time the big blind bets again. $130 this time. Now I think it makes even more sense to just flat call. That's what I do, and this time the small blind folds. River's an offsuit jack. This time the big blind bets $350. All things considered, it's a pretty bad run out. 5-6 gets there, 9-10 gets there, queen jack gets there. You can beat ace queen and king queen. Some sort of random hand turned into a bluff, random pair turned into a bluff. That's about it though. Maybe queen 10, overplayed queen 10. That seems a little bit optimistic. But having somewhat slow played and underupped my hand, I just decided to call it off, take a look, and pocket sevens is what we end up getting shown here. No good, so I was definitely going to lose something. Case to be made for putting in a raise on the flop, but that wouldn't have worked out too well either. King's no good this time. Moving on to the next enjoyable hand of poker. There's an early position limp. I raise ace-10 offsuit, $40. Get 3 callers. Flop comes favorable for us. 10-10-6 rainbow. Flop trips, nut kicker. There's one check. I bet $60. The cutoff calls and the other 2 players fold. Turn is a 9 of clubs, which brings a backdoor flush draw on board. This time I bet $180 and he makes the call once again. Off to a river card. Not my favorite river card. Puts 4 to a straight on board. Offsuit 7. That being said, I think there's some hands that should be most likely in his range that I can potentially still get some value from. Notably king 10, queen 10, and jack 10. If he happens to have a full house here, I think it's okay to bet fold. We still have plenty amount of money behind in this spot to make this a fairly reasonable bet fold spot. That's what I do. I try to go for some value here. I bet $300 and get an immediate call. Show my hand, no good. 10-8 offsuit. Once again, not too much differently I could have done. You can make a case for changing some of the sizings, my bet sizings, basing this flop and number of players and protecting various parts of my range. But all that being said, we were bound to lose something in this hand, something reasonable, facing the dreaded 10-8 offsuit. First fun one, the under the gun +1 opens for 30. I look down at 10-9 suited just next to him and I make the call. Small blind calls as well, which means we got a 3-way flop. 10-8 7 2 diamonds 1 club. Pretty pleased with that flop. Action checks over to me. No C bet from the initial raiser, so I'm gonna put in a bet and I make it 70. Small blind calls, initial raiser folds. Heads up to a turn card, which is the 3 of clubs, and this time the small blind leads out for 170. I don't think there's too much choice here other than just a flat call, because it would really suck to put in a raise and then face a 3 bet or a jam or something like that on this card. Don't think I can just call that off. So flat call here I think makes the most sense. We make a straight on the river, but it's the 3rd diamond, the jack of diamonds. He thinks for a bit and then he checks it over to me. And I think it's worth going for some value here. I think it has to be pretty small value because there's now 4 to a straight and 3 to a flush on board. Tough to say really what his most likely holding is in this spot, but when he's checking it over to me, I don't expect him to be super strong. So I think I should be able to get some value if I size appropriately meaning size down. So I put out a bet of $220, goes into the tank and is thinking it all over. So we definitely don't want to hear him say I raise or I'm all in or something like that. But luckily he says I call, I show, and it's good. So I think I like my sizing there. Worked out okay. Don't know if our other outs, such as our trips or 2 pair outs, would have been live or not. Seems like a decent possibility that they might not have been. But guess we got some run good come our way. Finally, straight on the river comes in. The next fun hand, there is an early position raise to $40. I looked down at 9-8 of hearts in the cutoff. With this sort of hand facing some late position action, I would for sure consider a 3 bet. But I think with the early position raise, with the initial raise coming from the early position spot, I think flat call is okay here. If I was small blind versus button or button versus cutoff, something like that, would for sure consider a 3-bet. But here I just decided to flat call. The button makes the call, and the small blind puts in a 3-bet. He makes it 170 to go. The initial raiser calls, and it's back to us, and I think it's pretty borderline. I don't really love the situation, mainly because we're not that deep. I think we're somewhere around 15 to 2K, maybe closer to 2K effective, but prefer to be a little bit deeper. It can be a little bit tough to really realize the equity with these hands. But seeing as how I'm stuck a little bit, and I've been running bad, and we're definitely due for some run good. Okay, not really those reasons. Okay, maybe only slightly joking with those reasons. I just decided to make the call here, and the button folds. So we do have last action going 3 ways into this flop, which comes 7-6 deuce, rainbow, 1 heart. So we flop the open ender to the nuts. Small blind puts in a c-bet, $220. Initial raiser calls, giving us a very good price to continue, so I call as well. Turn card's pretty favorable for our hand. Turn is the 5 of hearts, which gives us the nuts plus a flush redraw. Small blind slows down this time, checks it over. The early position player doesn't have too much money left relative to the pot. He's only got about $600. He sends all that in. Very good news. Ships it in there. I don't want to just snap call because I want to perhaps entice the 3-better in the small blind to come along as well. So I put in a, not sure I would say Hollywood, but just don't react too quickly. Eventually make the call, and the small blind folds immediately. Initial raiser asks if I want to run it twice. I don't really care. So we do run it twice, and each board runs out with an ace. I show my hand, considering the fact that I have the nuts, and he mucks his hand. So we're scooping this one. Finally, a nice sized pot comes our way, following a bunch of run bad as of late. Much needed scooped pot here. Desert mornings, they're pretty, you know. They're these Vegas desert mornings. Look at that. Look at that light. Look at that light coming off of the Bellagio like that. It's very pretty. Something about turning the nuts makes you, you know, appreciate the beauty around you a little bit. All right, last interesting hand. I look down at pocket aces in early position. I make it $40. The button calls, and the small blind puts in a 3-bet. Great news. Makes it 130 to go. Over to me, and I'm looking to make a 4-bet here. So I make it $350 to go. Player in the middle folds. Back to the small blinds. Excellent news. He jams it all in there. Snap call the $1,300 or so that's in his stack. We're off to the races. Do you say it's off to the races if it's not a coin flip? We're off to see all 5 cards. All 5 cards are presented, and my opponent rolls over pocket aces. Just when you think the run bad, run good corner is fully turned, I mean, we could have lost considering that he had free roll on the turn there, so can't complain too much. Aces do not get cracked. Good news is we're at least getting our money back. So that really wraps up the session there. I ended up booking a win of $517 this evening / morning.